Hello and welcome to Liv's Bookshelf. Today we are going to be doing a Q&A because you guys requested one and I thought it would be super fun. So if your question is not featured in this video, do not worry, I'm going to be doing another Q&A when I get back from New York if you guys want to ask me about the trip or just things in general. So make sure to send me more questions. If you see this video and you want to ask a question, just send it to me on YouTube or on my Instagram at Liv's Bookshelf and I will definitely put you in the next Q&A. So at Indy Reads asked, would you rather only be able to read new releases and not read any of your old favorites, or only read your older books and never have any new releases? I think old favorites, because right now I'm reading an old favorite and I'm just so into the book that I don't really care about new releases right now. So as of right now, I would say old favorites, because old favorites, they're just like, they never really get old, and especially if you have like lots of favorites like I do, then you have lots of options to choose from and it's nice to come back to them. New books are hit and miss. Sometimes you like them, sometimes you don't. So I'll stick with old favorites, I think. At a Romanian bibliophile asks, how many books do you own? A lot. I think my last count was around 200, and they are like scattered around the room, so you can't really see them in this shot, but I have like a bunch over here on this shelf, and then I have like all along this wall. You can see a couple of them like right there. A lot. So around 200, give or take a few. How many of them are on your TBR? More than I would like to admit. I have a lot of non-fiction books on my TBR right now, so like Hamilton, God Is Not One, The Web, Last Survivors. So many that I have been wanting to read, a lot of historical books that I've been wanting to read, but that I just haven't gotten to with school and stuff, and I don't want to cram any more real information into my brain. I just want to go fiction while I'm in high school. When I go to college it might be different. I might be more mature and want to actually pick up those books, but right now I just buy them and they stay on the shelf. But I will read them eventually. They're just a lot. Way too many. Let's not count. What book would you choose to describe your year so far? You know, all in all, it's been a pretty good year. There's been some ups and downs, but for me personally, it's been a pretty good year. So I want to go with, I'm trying to find a book that doesn't have like a typical hero's journey, because my life is not a hero's journey. The Selection. We'll go with The Selection, because even though that's not one of my favorite book series, I feel like the events that happen to America kind of coincide with the events that happen to me. So like, your life's good, you like your life, you love your life, and then something happens and you're kind of unsure of it, but then it ends up making your life better. So like YouTube. I wasn't sure how much I was going to love getting into YouTube, but it turned out to be one of the greatest things for me that I decided to do. I've met so many amazing people and I absolutely love it. And then other things in my life that I just wasn't sure about in the beginning, and they've turned out to be pretty darn awesome, you know? So The Selection. Let's see. At Citadog, what was the book or series that got you into reading? Were you always a bookworm? I was not always a bookworm. I actually hated reading up until the 8th grade. And for reference, I'm a senior in high school. I despised reading. I thought it was dumb. I thought that only nerds read, and I hated it. I was a TV guru. I loved movies and TV, and I could sit in front of the television for hours, but I could not sit for 15 minutes and read a book. And then I read Maximum Ride by James Patterson, which I think it's still a fairly popular book amongst new readers. and that was kind of like my gateway into reading, and I was like, oh, this is amazing, I want to be back so bad. And all the characters were like really relatable and stuff, but then the series just, for me at least, it sort of deteriorated as the books came out, so I found myself looking for other books to read. And I eventually landed the Selection series, which while I was reading that, I absolutely loved it. And then the Hunger Games series. And then I started reading more new adult books, like Throne of Glass and Ender's Game and Pot of Prophecy. Pot of Prophecy I actually read before Maximum Ride, but it was more of it was read to me. It was more like a bedtime story. And so I never actually read it myself until like a couple weeks ago, and I decided to reread it, and I still love the entire series. But I'm gonna say that Maximum Ride was what got me into reading. Okay. At Queen of Book Dragons asks, what was your favorite book of last year? And is that the right kind of question? I think it's the right kind of question. No judging, man, no judging. And so, favorite book of last year. I don't know what books were published last year. I just sort of go to Second & Charles, and that's the main bookstore I buy my books from. Or Second & Charles or Books A Million. And I just buy stuff. I don't really look at when it was published, but I think Winter by Marissa Meyer. Is that Marissa Meyer? Is that the right Meyer? Pretty sure it's the right Meyer. But yeah, Winter by Marissa Meyer I think was published last year or the year before. It was soon rather than late. Or Winter by Marissa Meyer, I think. I'm not really sure when it was published, but I read it last year, and that was one of my favorite books that I read last year. So, does that count? Is that the right kind of answer? I don't know. We're just gonna pretend that that's a good question and that that's a good answer, because your question's good, my answer's not. But it's okay. Shh. It's okay. It's okay. I gotta get better at this. Send me more questions so that I can practice this whole Q&A thing and maybe one day make a good video. Just kidding. I'll edit all the bad stuff out. At Hi Faye Reads asks, if you could be one character for a day, who would it be and why? I think that depends on where in the series they are. I think if I could be any character at like any point in their book series, I would be Cress from Cress, because I love Rapunzel. She's one of my favorite fairy tale characters, and I love Cress's personality. I love that she's a hacker, and I love that that's just not something you would associate with her like carefree, sweet like character, childish almost character, and also just the role she plays in the story. Like, we kind of expected, like, okay, Cinder's a mechanic, no surprise there, we want a strong female lead, and then Scarlet is all bad butt and stuff, but then Cress, she's tech support, but she's awesome tech support, and I love her. She was my favorite character from that series, her and Eco. But I don't want to be a slave, so I don't want to be like a little android slave in the first book. I would be Eco post-Winter, if I was Eco. But Cress, I love her at any point in her story, because even being like kidnapped and being put in a satellite, still like Netflix for hours, and that would just, I'd be cool if I had like a couple of books. I could stay in that satellite. I would be fine. Okay, I think that covers it. That is all of the questions for this particular video. Thank you guys so much to everyone who participated, and if you have some questions, then you can ask me in the comments below, and I do try to reply to every single comment, just because. Thank you guys so much, and I will see you guys in the next video. Ta-da-da!